Hello, my name is Patrick Michaud, and today I will be going over the evolution of skin color and the factors that drive it. This is a huge topic that we've been seeing a lot of in the news, and it's because of the different racial issues that have occurred. This topic has always been a massive issue in the history of the United States and even in the history of the world. It seems to me that a lot of the times that a population would discover or conquer another population that looked differently than them, some sort of divide would happen and one race would be deemed to be lesser. One reason this is being brought up in today's society is that even though we have put many laws in place to try and stop discrimination or racism, it still persists. For my research, I wanted to look at what really is skin color and how it has evolved to the difference in skin tones that we have today. There are many factors that drive skin pigmentation, and they are all intertwined. Ultraviolet radiation is experienced all across the globe by every living organism. The question, though, is at what levels do specific populations encounter and how does it impact the body and the nutrients inside of it? We will be looking at how these varying levels of radiation affect melanin expression, vitamin D and folate levels, and how combining all of these factors have driven skin pigmentation to become so diverse. Sunlight is a driving factor behind almost all life on Earth. Without it, many plants and animals would not survive because they are not getting the proper nutrients that they need. Although sunlight is vital for life, it also comes with extremely harmful wavelengths that we call ultraviolet radiation or UV rays. These wavelengths are separated based on their length into different sections. These sections affect different nutrients that each have different absorbance ranges. Visible light falls under the wavelengths of 380 to 700 nanometers. UVA is 315 to 400. UVB is 280 to 315 nanometers. Looking at the image on the left-hand side, you can see there are different colors across the world in bands. The different colors are a representation of the UV index that these regions experience. These differences in UV levels are shown to be the lowest at the north and south poles, with the highest levels being experienced around the latitude of the equator. So, just to drive this point home, the level of ultraviolet radiation that you experience is dependent on where you are geographically in regards to latitude, with those closest to zero or the equator experiencing the highest levels. While exposure to sunlight is required for vitamin D production, overexposure can be very harmful as well, and it can occur quite rapidly depending on what skin type you have. Looking at the table on the right, you can see that there are 6 different skin types, with each of them having a maximum amount of time that it can be exposed to ultraviolet radiation and not have any damage to the cells inside of the body. Type 1 can be exposed for 10 minutes or less. Type 2 is 20 minutes. 3 is 30 minutes. Type 4 is 50 minutes. And finally, types 5 and 6 are able to be exposed for more than 60 minutes. Now you have to take into account different levels based on different days, but on average, if you have the specific skin type, that is what is recommended. What skin type you are categorized under is dependent on how dark or light your skin pigmentation is, which is controlled by melanin expression in the skin. In the past, it was believed that the varying skin colors around the globe were due to differences in temperature, where regions with the hottest temperatures would produce populations with the darkest skin. This hypothesis is a great example of correlation does not always mean causation. While they were correct in saying that hotter regions normally tend to have darker skin colors, it is not the reason for difference in pigmentation. If they were to take two sets of parents and have them birth and raise children in temperatures opposite of what their ancestors would have experienced, it would not have altered their pigmentation to the levels that they assumed. Past scientists realized this and eventually discovered it was the expression of melanin in the skin that leads to altered pigmentation. When humans became mostly hairless, they needed a way to protect themselves against harmful ultraviolet radiation. The pigments that were responsible for protection were eventually named melanin. There are three types of melanin: pheomelanin, neuromelanin, and the most common type, eumelanin. These different types are created through a process called melanogenesis, which occurs in a group of cells named melanocytes. The activation of these cells to create melanin is initiated by the skin being exposed to ultraviolet radiation, where expression of melanin will cause the skin to become darker. This helps the body protect itself from harm, since melanin is able to dissipate 99.9% of absorbed ultraviolet radiation. One might ask, well, what is the problem then? Shouldn't we just increase melanocyte production to make the skin as dark as possible so we never have to worry about UV radiation? But this won't work though, because extended exposure to this radiation is thought to be one of the causes of malignant melanoma, which is cancer in the melanocytes. Another reason as to why the body cannot just block out all sunlight is because then the production of vitamin D would not occur, and that is deadly for the body as well. The body needed to be able to protect itself from harmful radiation while still allowing enough absorption so vitamin D could properly be synthesized. This created a correlation between those closest to the equator, which has the highest amount of UV radiation, and the people living there having the darkest skin. Not for heat regulation, like scientists previously thought, but for protection. Then, as you move further up or down in latitude, away from the equator, you will get less ultraviolet radiation, which also goes along with decreased vitamin D synthesis. This is not a problem for the body though, because as I said earlier, melanin production is initiated by ultraviolet radiation. So, with a decrease in levels, you also get a decrease in melanin production, and skin pigmentation will be lighter. Because of the lighter skin, the body is able to absorb more sunlight, and vitamin D is able to be produced properly. These varying levels also match up with how much melanin is expressed in the skin, which is shown in the picture on the right-hand side. As you can see, as you increase in latitude, you decrease in your melanin index. This will result in higher latitudes having lighter skin and lower or closer to the equator having the darkest skins. Being hairless provided many advantages for evolving humans, with two of the main ones being vitamin D production, as I said before, and thermal regulation. Vitamin D is crucial in developing and keeping the bones of the body strong. It does this by helping the body absorb phosphorus and calcium from food. The deficiency comes with many problems, including rickets, which results in bone tissue not properly mineralizing, so they are softer and weaker, and likely result in bowed legs, as shown in the picture. You can see a normal leg would be straight up and down. With rickets, they are curved. Other problems occurring with the deficiency include cardiovascular disease, cancer, and cognitive impairment. Any expression of these defects results in a decreased fitness of an individual caused by not getting enough sunlight. On average, though, humans only need about 15 to 30 minutes a day of sunlight for adequate vitamin D production to occur. Folate, or folic acid in synthetic form, is a very important water-soluble B vitamin that can be found in fortified foods like cereal, flour, beef liver, nuts, beans, leafy greens, and many more. You can only increase the levels in your body, though, through food that you consume or from supplementation. A deficiency in this vitamin can commonly result in spina bifida, neural tube birth defects during fetal development, and megaloblastic anemia, which is red blood cells that are larger than normal with a decrease in total number. Folate has many roles in the body, and one of the most important ones is it is essential for DNA synthesis and cell division. Like many of the body's cycles, just one kink in the chain can cause inhibition to every step following. Other than DNA synthesis, a study done by Brott et al. Showed that females with increased folate levels have healthier oocytes that occur at a much higher frequency. Not only does this vitamin play a role in female reproduction, but it is involved in spermatogenesis for males as well. Unfortunately, ultraviolet radiation degrades folate levels in the body. Looking at the figure on the right-hand side, it shows that the peak absorbance rate that folate displays has a wavelength of about 295 nanometers, which falls under the UVB rays of 280 to 315 or 320 nanometers. At these wavelengths, folate absorbs UVB rays directly and photolysis will occur, which means folate will be oxidized into a form that the body cannot use. So, if folate levels in the body are not protected, then fertility and fitness of an individual will decrease. The main argument against folate driving skin color evolution is that UVB rays don't penetrate the skin deep enough to affect majority of folate levels inside the body. While there is truth to their argument, there are indirect ways that UV rays could degrade folate levels in the body. This happens because of UVA rays penetrating down to photosensitizers in the blood, causing them to produce reactive oxygen species. These reactive oxygen species will then degrade the form of folate found in the blood to an oxidized inactive form that the body cannot use. So not only does folate get degraded from UVB rays directly, it also happens indirectly through the formation of reactive oxygen species. It is the body trying to stay in homeostasis between allowing enough sunlight to be absorbed to produce vitamin D and the protection of the B vitamin folate, which is one part of a vast network that allows the body to synthesize DNA, have proper fetal development, and overall fertility of an individual that results in skin pigmentation being darker or lighter. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have a different understanding of where the color of your skin actually comes from now. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at the address below. Thank you.